YouTube. Hey everyone, I wanted to do a little stream here, a quick one where I talk about certain directors that haven't been doing as well in the last 5 years. Looking at the films that they've directed, I'm going to be talking about both two directors that have put out classic movies, and then one director that has done movies that I really enjoy for sure that have gotten very positive reviews, but are not classics the same way other movies are. First of all, I wanted to talk today about Francis Ford Coppola. This guy is absolutely a very well known director. First of all, because he did Godfather 1 and 2, which are obviously classic, iconic crime movies that resulted in award recognition for at least one of the actors involved in those films. I'm pretty sure the lead actor got award recognition. They are known as some of the best films ever made. Also, this is a guy who did Rainmaker back in 1997. I think this is a fantastic legal courtroom drama. Also, here's another movie that's not a classic in my opinion, but it's one that I really enjoy and have nostalgia for. It's The Outsiders. This is based on a book by an author whose last name is Hinton. I actually read The Outsiders back when I was in school. I remember reading The Giver and The Outsiders for one of my classes back in school. Then I read both of those books for fun afterwards because I really enjoyed them. And I think the film Outsiders from Francis Ford Coppola is a really good adaptation of the book. Obviously, the book is able to go a bit more in depth with the story inherently. With a book, you're able to go into more detail, but the film is a really good version of that story. Also, Francis Ford Coppola did Apocalypse Now, which, to be fair, I'm not as familiar with, but I'm pretty sure that one is known as a great film. But however, before 2024, the last time that Francis Ford Coppola directed a movie was back in 2011. And then in 2024, he did a movie called Megalopolis that he invested a lot of time, effort, and money in. And ooh, yikes, that was a failure. Man, that movie got bad reviews. It absolutely tanked at the box office, and no one is talking about it. I think that's very sad. It's very unfortunate that this guy who's done some of the most well-known films out there is now not as talked about by people. And then I'm going to also talk here about Robert Zemeckis. This is the director who did the Back to the Future trilogy. Obviously, those are some of the best sci-fi time travel films out there. It's a really good trilogy because even though I've always thought Back to the Future Part 2 not as strong as Part 1 and 3, that doesn't make it a bad movie. It's still an enjoyable movie. I would still be totally fine with rewatching it. In fact, not long ago, I rewatched all three Back to the Future films. Also, this is the same guy who did the movie Romancing the Stone with Michael Douglas. Classic adventure film with some of the Indiana Jones energy, but it's also a romance movie. Also, he did Forrest Gump, an absolutely iconic feel-good drama. Also, Robert Zemeckis did a movie called Contact that I actually watched for the first time not long ago, just within the past month, I'm pretty sure. I'm a fan of that one. It's a very interesting sci-fi movie that looks at this what if question. How would Earth, how would the government, how would the military react if suddenly there was a signal from outer space that was discovered? In the movie, you have this lady who's the first one to discover the signal. Her and these other people working at these satellites see that there's an actual signal for real, and then everyone else learns about this, and we see how they react to it, and then we see her maybe like go into another dimension, something like that, later on, and then she goes back, and there's no evidence that she actually went anywhere, but there's something you see right at the end of the movie that seems to indicate, oh, this actually was real. However, when you look at recent years, man, Robert Zemeckis just hasn't had that good of a track record. I mean, in 2024, he directed a movie called Here, and ooh, that was not a success. A movie didn't get positive reviews. I don't think it made very much money at the box office, and nobody is talking about that movie. I have not seen a single YouTuber review Here. Yikes. And then 2022, Robert Zemeckis directed a movie called Pinocchio. You do not feel a vision from him at all. You feel like he was hired by Disney and then they converted him into a McDonald's manager, just putting out generic corporate product for a big studio that is not interesting, doesn't have any directorial flair. It's just put through the assembly line. Thus, it's a movie that is utterly devoid of any creative or artistic merit. It's a very cynical movie that's just trying to remind you of other things Disney. There's literally a moment in live action Pinocchio where you see that Geppetto has all these clocks that are based on Disney characters. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess this guy is either a time traveler or an incredible visionary. Geppetto's clocks of all these Disney characters. The only reason that's in there is just to say to the audience, hey guys, remember all these other Disney films? And in 2020, Robert Zemeckis directed a movie called The Witches. It's based on a novel from Roald Dahl. This is actually the second adaptation of this story, The Witches, after a version that was released in the 1990s. Unfortunately, The Witches, Robert Zemeckis did not get very good reviews. I don't know how much money it made at the box office. I haven't really looked into that, but it didn't really make much of a splash, especially because I don't think it was released in theaters. I think it was released straight to HBO Max, but I can't say with 100% certainty that that is actually the case. I'd have to look into it more. And in 2018, Robert Zemeckis did a movie called Welcome to Marwen. That one was received too well either. So I hope really that Robert Zemeckis can put out a movie within the next few years that actually gets positive reviews, that actually does well at the box office, and actually gets people talking. Now, the one other director I'm going to talk about here is Zack Snyder. Here's the thing. I do not think Zack Snyder has done any classic movies the same way that Godfather or Back to the Future or Indiana Jones or Jaws or Jurassic Park is a classic. But Snyder has done some movies that I enjoy. I'm a fan of 300. I'm a fan of Watchmen. I'm a fan of Snyder's version of Dawn of the Dead. But unfortunately, the most recent films he did were Rebel Moon PG-13 and Rebel Moon Director's Cut. Ooh, I think that was just an enormous miscalculation on the part of both Zack Snyder and Netflix. I think it was not at all a good idea to release the watered down, bland, generic, very derivative PG-13 cut before releasing the R-rated director's cut. It's like, what are you doing? All the people who are Zack Snyder fans obviously don't want the watered down, sanitized PG-13 cut. They want Snyder's true vision. They want that R-rated cut. Also, man, all the things Zack Snyder has said in interviews, I think have not at all done him any favors. They haven't put him in a good light. And so I think Zack Snyder burned through a tremendous amount of trust because of everything he did with Rebel Moon. He both managed to draw skepticism from the people who are fans of him and also push away more people who already weren't big about Snyder. So I hope Snyder can get things back on track. I mean, sure, he did Army of the Dead in 2021. That got good, though not great, reviews. I do not know how well it did at the box office, but that one wasn't an absolute failure. I think a good amount of people would say, okay, that movie could have been better, but it wasn't an absolute misfire. It wasn't a Rebel Moon. Frankly, with the way that Zack Snyder and Netflix handled all that, it literally feels like they're trying to manufacture another release the Snyder Cut movement, which feels rather cynical. And also, I think for a lot of people, it is just very irritating that there's a segment of the Zack Snyder fan base that is extreme. The Zack Snyder cult people who borderline worship Zack Snyder. The people who just go so far in praising him, it feels like it's almost become a religious thing for them defending Snyder. In fact, this is so well known that it got a shout out in Barbie. That's the thing that's unique about Snyder. I don't think there's any other case where you can say this director has an extreme group of people that are followers of him. That just goes so far in praising this guy that it's irritating to a lot of other people. I'm in the future definitely going to talk about the directors who have actually been doing well. But for now, I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm going to be back not long from now. I plan to go live again pretty soon, definitely within the next week for sure. We'll see what exact day I decide to go live again, but I'm going to wrap things up there. I hope these directors can actually get things back on track. Bye, everyone.